Hello, I am the gaming superhero, and today we are making a kit for the most patriotic Captain America, even if it was only for a few months. This marks the first character I've done based on viewer decision. Kind of. It wasn't requested exactly, but I put a poll up in March about who you guys preferred, U.S.Agent or Red Guardian, to decide which I would do to tie in with Thunderbolts, because they wouldn't both fit, and U.S.Agent won. On both YouTube and Twitter, Bluesky did not contribute because it doesn't have a poll feature, and my Discord was not active at the time. It is now, though. So if I do something like this in the future, you might want to think about joining. Speaking of joining, we have Shoutout, because people guessed the teaser image. We have Vitamin D Cosplay 2764 and Biggle, who guessed on the Discord, and Vitamin D, who, guessed on the YouTube. It was all super cool. Well, one of them thought it was Captain America, but he said John Walker, and that's good enough. That's close enough. He was Captain America, so, it works. But with that out of the way, let's get into his first appearance. John Walker first appeared in Captain America number 323. As Super Patriot, but we're going to jump to issue 354, where he becomes the U.S. Agent. We open with Captain America investigating the greatest robot maker, the Machine Smith. I've never heard of him, but I trust Cap's judgment enough. While Battlestar is investigating the death of John Walker. So I think you can guess where that leads. Cap then goes to Avengers Island, because of course they have an island. He meets with a man named Fabian Stankiewicz. The character was the greatest name in comics, while Battlestar calls Ms. Cooper from The Hood to let her know about the weird things that he found that may say that John Walker isn't dead? What? But before we can really get confirmation of that, we gotta cut back to Captain America, who is given Mr. Stankiewicz the job as the Avengers' resident inventor. I'm sorry, what the fuck does the Avengers lineup look like at this point? The last book I read was for Taskmaster from like the 1980s, and it had Beast, Iron Man, and Hank Pym all on the team, not counting the two presumably genius robots. You mean to tell me all those people left, and now all the inventing is even feasibly being left to some random guy? Anyway, while Cap is out here making stupid-ass decisions, Battlestar is letting Cooper know that he believes John Walker is still alive. Then we cut back to Cap and Fabian, who has convinced Cap to let him tag along because a robot was involved in an alarm they got, which turns out to be the fourth sleeper. I have no idea what that is, other than it's a robot and kind of looks like Mongol from DC. Meanwhile, we cut to a third perspective of a scientist and general looking over an ironmonger suit. Cap and Fabian take the motionless robot back to the island when Cap mentions bringing Hank Pym in to examine the sleeper, so he is on the team, but some random schmuck is still worthy of top inventor for the Avengers. Let's move along. All this jumping around is giving me a headache. After a President Bush name drop, a bunch of U.S. officials are introduced to the U.S. Agent, finally, who then spars against the Ironmonger, while the general explains that his death was faked and that he was modified to not be identifiable by the public as John Walker, because they don't like him very much. Oh, and Cap defeats the sleeper or whatever. And that is U.S. Agent's introduction. Pretty good when we actually get to the U.S. Agent bit, but generally a lot of jumping back and forth between a lot of perspectives, and Cap isn't really doing anything interesting enough. Like all the Battlestar lead up and then just like as we follow into the U.S. Agent stuff is interesting, but then Cap is just off doing like his own completely unrelated stuff, and it's just super weird. I mean, maybe that's because I'm reading this out of context and only looking for the stuff connected to Walker, but still. With all that out of the way, let's get into his kit. I have made him a duelist to help differentiate him from Captain America. with his primary fire being a gun. A single pistol to be exact, because unlike the other America-themed superheroes, this one knows the value of a good firearm. With the ability to sprint at increased speeds like Captain America or Black Widow, and the addition of a melee ability that slows enemies and builds up damage with each consecutive hit. Pretty simple base, but from which a beautiful kit can be built. Ability 1 is Counterfeit Legend. Hold up his shield to block damage and shoot from behind like a riot shield. Very similar to Cap's ability, but it doesn't deflect projectiles and he can, shoot from behind it. It also has less health than Cap's, but that's not really saying much given how little his shield has in the first place. So, I don't know, maybe you could even just make them the same, but I would imagine it'd have to be less to justify it being a duelist. Ability 2 is Liberty Toss. Throw the shielded enemies to deal damage and inflict a bleed effect. Another very similar ability to Captain America's with a slight twist. The shield also doesn't bounce off surfaces like Cap's. It can only bounce off of enemies between each other, so closer to Moon Knight's projectiles than Cap's. As far as how long the bleed effect lasts or how much damage it does, I'm leaving that up to the devs to figure out. This one was very much inspired by, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, where he got blood on the shield. That's where the idea for the bleed effect came from. In relation to everything else, it was just convenient, and I thought it'd be cool. I almost actually had it just sort of negate healing. Like, if they were hit by the shield, they wouldn't be able to be healed as good. But I decided, bleed might be more fitting. Although I think more anti-heal could be nice in this game, but not for Walker. Next is the ultimate called Freedom Stand, and I've done a pretty similar kit to the Captain America that already exists, but this is where it all changes. His shield gains infinite health, and anyone behind Walker in like a cone deals bonus damage. So instead of running around like a crackhead giving bonus health, U.S.Agent will instead stand his ground and give bonus damage. A total inversion of Cap's ult. This, ironically enough, makes his ult more of a defensive ult than Cap's, given it limits actual forward movement, but it is great for holding an objective. But that's just part of the differences between the two. I also have a team-up with Captain America called Something to Prove. When within range of the Captain, U.S.Agent will move faster and deal more damage. Very simple, but felt fitting character-wise. That when Captain America is on the field, Walker feels the need to prove himself, pushing beyond his limits, which is why I didn't give him bonus health or healing, because he should be putting himself more at risk. Story-wise, anyway, obviously, I would hope actual players would use this bonuses more responsibly, but honestly, I think most people would probably play him to be very lore accurate in this particular case. Just use the speed and bonus damage to just run into the middle of the team and try to get kills. Instead, all you do is get killed. And that is how I would add the reject Captain America to Marvel Rivals. He became a lot more similar to Captain America than I would have liked when I started designing him, but I'm not sure there was really any other way to do it between his very similar power and tool sets, not to mention very character fitting, given how much of his character is based around wanting to either be Captain America or be better than him, thus leading to be very similar. But I think I still managed to differentiate him enough from Captain America, functionally acting as what if Captain America was a duelist instead of, which I think is worth being his own character slot for. It's sort of a case of if you can readjust a similar character into a totally different role, it's worth it. Or like my Red Hulk concept, they are both in the same role but drastically different because the powers and general vibe are different enough. But let me know what you think. I definitely think this is different enough, but I also wouldn't want them to start releasing what are essentially Echo characters like this for quite a while, maybe 2 years, given their one hero a month schedule. Hell with that schedule, maybe 1 year is enough. Would you make him any different, or would you take the lazy way out and make him a skin? What would you do? Who else would you like to see me make a kit for? And remember, to check out the new Discord. And you're welcome for giving you the real Patriot Captain America liberal.